You know that quiet moment when you're standing in a grocery store aisle, staring at a price tag that somehow feels different than it did a few months ago. Nothing dramatic, no announcement, no explanation, just a subtle shift. Eggs cost a little more. Gas feels heavier when the pump stops. Even something small, like ordering takeout or filling a prescription, suddenly carries this quiet sense that your money isn't stretching the way it used to. And most people do something very human in that moment. They assume it's just inflation, or corporate greed, or maybe poor economic policy somewhere far above their life. So they move on, pay the bill, adjust quietly. But there's something interesting about how these moments work. Because what people rarely realize is that many of the price changes they feel in their daily life don't actually begin in grocery stores, banks, or government budgets. They often begin thousands of miles away, in places most people never think about, places where tension, conflict, and uncertainty ripple outward into the global system. And that's where something deeper begins to unfold. Right now, the rising tension between the United States, Iran, and Israel isn't just a geopolitical story happening on the news. It's the kind of event that quietly reshapes the cost of everyday life. Not overnight, not all night, but gradually through systems most people never see. Because the global economy doesn't respond to war the way people imagine, it responds to fear. There's a concept economists often talk about called risk pricing. It's surprisingly psychological. When markets sense instability, especially in regions connected to oil, shipping routes, or military alliances, the nervous system of the global economy starts reacting long before anything actually happens. Energy traders raise prices because supply might be disrupted. Shipping companies increase insurance because routes might become dangerous. Governments increase defense spending because uncertainty demands preparation. None of these decisions are emotional, but they are deeply influenced by human perception of threat, and perception alone can move billions of dollars. One study from the National Bureau of Economic Research found that geopolitical tension consistently pushes energy prices upward even before physical supply changes occur. Not because oil disappeared, but because uncertainty spreads through markets the same way stress spreads through a human nervous system. And oil is one of the most powerful signals in that system, because almost everything in modern life quietly runs on energy. The trucks that deliver groceries, the planes that move goods across continents, the factories that produce medicine, electronics, and packaging. When energy becomes even slightly more expensive, the ripple moves to every layer of the economy, not loudly, but persistently. That's why a conflict in the Middle East can slowly show up in places that seem completely unrelated to war. A gallon of gasoline, the price of airline tickets, even the cost of everyday products sitting on a store shelf. And there's something fascinating about how the human brain processes this. Our minds are designed to understand direct cause and effect. If it rains, the ground gets wet. If you work more hours, you earn more money. But the modern economy doesn't operate through simple lines of cause. It operates through complex webs, thousands of decisions, fears, and expectations interacting with each other, which means the effects people feel in their daily life often arrive without a clear story attached to them. And when the story is missing, the brain fills in its own explanation, sometimes blaming companies, sometimes politicians, sometimes inflation itself. But the deeper truth is that global systems are constantly observing shock from events far outside ordinary awareness. Wars, sanctions, alliances, shipping disruptions, energy markets. They all feed into the same network, and none of this means anyone is to blame in a simple way. Economic pressure during global tension isn't a moral story, it's a structural one. Different countries respond based on their interests. Different markets react based on risk. And ordinary people simply experience the ripple effects of small shifts in the cost of living. Quiet adjustments that slowly reshape daily life. But there's another layer people rarely talk about. Humans are incredibly adaptable. The same nervous system that reacts to uncertainty also learns to normalize it. We adjust spending habits. We become more selective with purchases. We notice prices more carefully than we used to. Not because something is wrong with us, but because awareness evolves when environments change. And in a strange way, that awareness is also a kind of strength. It means the mind is paying attention to signals in the world, even when the system itself feels distant and complex. So if you've ever had that quiet moment, and once you start noticing these invisible connections, you begin to realize something interesting about the world. The forces shaping everyday life are often far more psychological, interconnected, and human than they first appear. And understanding those patterns changes the way you see almost everything around you. If this perspective felt familiar, there are a few more hidden dynamics behind everyday life that most people never notice. But once you do, the world starts making a little more sense.